Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 38.
The Christmas Spectacular episode.
Yes, because
We're saying Merry Christmas this year.
Is spectacular. With
Even
me,
though
of course,
the
is
biggest
Kayla
atheist.
Avery over there being wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Good old Kayla. And, of course, Mac.
It's Mac. I'm tired tonight.
Not feeling it? You're not feeling it?
No, I'm just...
You don't get the normal intro
I'll go
there.
into the Christmas special. I'll sing... Well, we can jingle bells all night long, and I'll come back for the Mac Daddy next week.
Wow, okay. Well then, so let's not touch that one. And let's move right on to what a wonderful week it's been.
I know, Christmas came early.
For the Koch brothers.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, actually, it's probably not early for the Koch brothers.
Mercers.
Because they've been doing this.
Adelson.
They've been on this crusade for like, what, the last 10
years?
Yeah.
I guess it's not early for them.
At least 8.
I mean, one of the Kochs was the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party back in the 80s. This isn't really a new thing.
No, and well, I mean, with the new SJW Koch, who's on his crusade to like take down all that fake wine. What a martyr he's made himself out to be.
Indeed.
Really the new Koch.
Right?
So all the rich people got their wonderful tax bill.
Oh, yeah.
All 400 of the wealthiest of the wealthy.
So at the expense of all the rest of us, all us poor saps, we get this new tax plan, and it went through the House and the Senate, and then back through the House again because they're stupid.
I don't know if you could say we get anything from this bill.
We get fucked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
We get like bent over on this one.
And we can't deduct that on our taxes with thanks to this new bill.
They limited the deductions on getting fucked.
Yeah, so like, you are taking a beating for fun and all on your own expenses.
So is everybody else, except for, again, the 1%. I mean...
I guess you could look at the bright side here and think of it in the long term that they're also getting fucked. The problem is that, they still just come out relatively ahead.
Well, also, and if you're a private jet, like if you've made yourself into a private jet, you now get your own special tax deduction.
Is that like an identity that someone can choose now?
I'm hoping so, because
Is that what you're going to do?
I'm thinking about changing my gender to an LLC.
It only makes sense at this point.
Like, I'm laughing because I'm wondering how you fight that in court. Like,
I mean, corporations are people too, right?
Yeah, like you might
Arguably
find a way to get away with this.
And
kind.
I might as well be
That's dastardly.
I might as well just change my name to an LLC S corp. That way, I can really reap all these benefits. It's the only way I'm going to feel again.
Don't you need to be a pass through to really reap them?
Oh, I'm a passer, all right.
You had to see her eyes really to get that one.
Well, I feel like I couldn't help but go for it, even though it should have been the other way around.
Right. I mean, being able to give looks like that, you can tell you've been through some shit. So, here we are with the tax plan, and guess what it does?
Aside from massively increase the deficit and fuck the poor and the middle class.
And the global
really the
economy.
Country as a whole.
And the global economy.
I mean, I think you're going to have to be a little more specific before we know which the many things that it does.
Well, how about it cuts all kinds of money from things that affect mostly poor people?
The mandatory spending cuts as a result of the deficit increase.
Yeah, if you could just back up and explain what that means, the mandatory.
Yeah. So in 2010, Congress passed the Statutory Pay-As-You-Go Act of 2010, which was an update to a previous set of regulations. And basically what it does is whenever a bill passes that does substantial increase to it's projected to increase the national deficit substantially, it triggers a set of automatic spending cuts on programs that are primarily mandatory spending programs that are funded on a continuing basis. They get money appropriated automatically and don't need a specific part of the budget allocated to it. This includes a lot of things the government does, and many of those are kind of essential services. Some of the things that, assuming Congress doesn't take action, will get cut as a result of this include things like, $1.5 billion cut from the National Flood Insurance Fund.
Which we don't use.
Just next year alone, that's $1.5 billion per year. Then $1.3 billion per year from U.S. Customs and Border Protection's operations and support, which, I was under the impression that supposedly the Republicans really cared about that one.
Well, you know how Trump's tough on borders.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so tough on borders, he doesn't even need anything to help him.
Yeah.
He can just do it all on his own with his little doll hands.
Which also explains why this would cut $318 million from immigration customs enforcement operations and support, and $4 billion from citizenship and immigration services operations and support.
So is that like pro undocumented immigrants now?
At least tacitly, you kind of have to read it that way because it's cutting a shitload of money that would be going to enforcing all of that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get mad about cutting from ICE because it's, ICE is kind of evil, or it's becoming
the way it's being run.
Yeah, is very evil. So I'm not going to get upset about that, but cutting $4 billion from citizenship and immigration services, it's like, okay, so how are we supposed to supposedly stop undocumented people from coming in?
Well, that's customs and border. Oh wait, they're losing $1.3 billion. Well, that's okay. We'll just kick them out with ICE. Wait, they're getting $318 million cut.
Well, what about the Healthcare Fraud Act? So we'd make sure that no one of the undocumented get healthcare services.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Wait, strangely, that one also seems to be on my list. $1.3 billion cut. Huh.
What about that? That new fund that Trump made and he martyred that woman that was murdered in San Francisco. And he created this new funding specifically only for crimes of undocumented people.
Yeah.
They wouldn't cut crime funding, would they?
Well, that one, I'm not sure how that one's actually
the
funded.
Crime Victims Fund.
The thing
that is losing $13 billion in this.
No, this is the that's the one for that's the.
I know, but I'm just because they're both crime bills.
Yeah, no, that one's funded. I believe the thing you're talking about is paid for through the Department of Justice, but I'm not sure which fund it comes out of.
But the Department of Justice wouldn't be losing any money, right?
Actually, a number of the funds that get cut are actually under the Department of Justice. It's just they're the mandatory ones that don't require
the fees and expenditures of witnesses fund, losing $270 million.
Yeah, but for sure we wouldn't touch any funding that had to do with maybe military and retirements.
Well, except for the $7.5 billion from the concurrent receipt accrual payments to the military retirement fund. But aside from that one,
is the military retirement fund actually called crap?
No, that's just how the payments are called for going to it.
But it's but it says concurrent receipt accrual payments.
Yes.
CRAP.
Yes. No, that part is definitely abbreviated crap.
So that would be crap to the military retirement.
Well, suddenly that is a lot more accurate.
So they're cutting $7.5 billion off of crap,
which typically would be a good thing.
Yes.
Usually, except
typically,
here.
but let's say let's reach. Let's reach for something impossible. They would never cut from the Black Lung Foundation or funding because they promised those minors.
Oh, that's true. We do know how Trump cares about the minors, which is why it would only get a $69 million cut from the Black Lung Disability Trust Fund.
Yeah, but the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Fund, which is also something that really affects the miners, is getting $207 million cut.
Right.
So the miners are losing nearly $300 million in one way or another.
Well, let's face it. Given where most of the mining occurs, a lot of those people are benefiting from other social programs like, say, Meals on Wheels or Medicare. Meals on Wheels is part of the block grants that for social services that are losing $1.7 billion, and Medicare is losing $25 billion from this.
And both of those all very much help veterans.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So
but with the Black Lung Disability Fund losing its money, they can just stay on the ACA, on the healthcare stuff, right? They're not touching that.
Well, I mean, they're getting rid of the
except
individual
for
mandate, but
destroying it.
Well, and also let's say, for instance, like we had another like Ebola scare. Like there's nothing that would be cut to like stop like that, would it be?
Well, obviously, it's not like they'd cut, say, I don't know, $626 million from the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Trust Fund. And it's absolutely not like they'd cut $900 million from the Prevention and Public Health Fund.
Except they did.
Oh, wait, exactly those things. Those are exactly things that they're part of the mandatory spending cuts that are triggered by the passage of this bill.
Wow, this is really going to help the middle class.
Yeah, cutting tens of billions of dollars of programs that actually directly help the poor and middle class in favor of giving the rich a tax cut. I mean, what could go wrong?
I mean, not to mention how much greatness this is giving to our veterans and military members.
Oh,
this is mind-blowing. Every last bit of this is just killing me. Like,
and that's
no,
just,
it's like literally killing you.
Yes, and that's we haven't even gotten into like things other than stuff triggered by the Pay as You Go Act. Like, we aren't talking about the actual provisions of this bill. We haven't even talked about. Well, we mentioned eliminating the individual mandate, of course. But we didn't talk about the limiting the state and local tax deduction to $10,000. We didn't talk about how it does weird things to the tax brackets without actually changing the number of them, which was the thing you remember how they were all like, oh, you'll be able to fill out your taxes on like a postcard, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be because they were going to reduce this to like 4 tax brackets from the current 7, which
was actually,
that still wasn't going to make it postcard.
There was actually someone did a side-by-side screenshot of like 2 different tweets that Paul Ryan sent out. And one was like, and it showed like stairs and it was like 7 steps. And it was like, this is what the Dems want you to have. And then there was like another chart where it was like, and this is what we want you to have. And it showed 4 stairs. And then there's an asterisk. And it was like breaking up into 7 categories.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they were talking about how, they were going to reduce it to 4 tax brackets and you were going to be able to fill out your taxes on a postcard and a bunch of bullshit like that was never, ever going to be. Well, okay, theoretically, I guess they could have reduced the number of tax brackets, as terrible of an idea as it would have been. But they ended up not. They ended up keeping all 7, but they changed the rates and where they start and end. Well, only where they end in a number of cases and start for the ones above them. But basically, like, they screwed around with them, but didn't really do much of anything.
Because you've got Captain Big Boy Pants, like Paul Ryan, who only knows how to like comb his hair, not how to do math, who's like being like put in charge of all of this. And so it's like they can't even like, they're already working on like corrections. They have a corrections bill in the works to cover up and like kind of change all the mistakes they made in this bill because the math doesn't add up.
Well, yeah, and I mean, then you look at, like, so many of these things are, relative. I mean, they're not minor. Reducing the top tax bracket rate and all that is certainly not minor per se, but comparatively, the changes that they're making there aren't that big. The big things are things like, raising the exemption on the alternative minimum tax and increasing the phase-out threshold and, doubling the exemption for the estate tax. And
wait, so before the estate tax was $5 million or more?
$5.6 million, I believe.
So does that mean that, so when they double it, that means that people who, you have to make $10 million or more to get it?
Yeah, literally, if the estate isn't worth $11 million odd, they don't pay a cent of estate tax.
Oh, okay. So the estate tax is only going to apply.
Yeah, the exemption amount is the amount that it doesn't apply.
So it clears up those people between 5 and 10 to not pay a state tax.
Oh, okay. I thought they wanted to eliminate it altogether.
A lot of the rich people's kids don't owe that tax now too.
Yeah.
They did want to get rid of it entirely. That turned out not to happen here. A number of the worst provisions got scaled back at various points because the House and Senate couldn't agree on exactly which shitty form they wanted, so they went with something they could actually get through.
And then I heard there was I didn't see it on here, but like the individual deduction, it was like for a single person, if you made $500,000. Like it doubled your like individual deduction, or couples that make.
They doubled the standard deduction, but they got rid of the personal exemption entirely. So that one basically is a wash. The difference.
But it was like the incomes that I saw, like when they were debating it, it was like it applied. There was some weird deduction or standard price, and it only applied to like a single person making like I think it was like 100,000, and couples making 500,000 or more.
That might have been the exemption on the alternative minimum tax.
Yeah, it was on the
Yeah,
AT.
but it was one of those like those tax brackets or those tax like that they like try to like say like, oh, this is going to help you, and it's like it's literally only helping these people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
like
aren't
2%
paying-
of the
you aren't
population.
paying the alternative minimum
and
tax.
if a
unless
single
you're
person
really
is
wealthy.
raking in $100,000 on their own, they're okay.
Yeah. So, like real numbers, we've got the tax care or the child tax care credit, right? Something Rubio really wanted.
And he said he wasn't going to vote for it unless he gets it.
And
he still didn't even get it.
Well, so they did the increase from 1,000 to 2,000.
Yep.
And that's, of course, just, something so you just see it and walk on by because it looks good.
Yep.
But in reality, that 2,000 isn't refundable. Only 1,400 is refundable. So, the part that people really care about the most is the refundable part of that. And so that 2,000 looks pretty, but it's not the truth.
Right. They actually only increased it by 400 practically. Unless you're wealthy enough that you would otherwise be paying enough taxes that all of that, get all of that deduction actually matters to you. Or not deduction, but credit. Yeah.
I saw someone on Twitter. There was a tweet on Twitter that like they basically said like the average like single parent is going to get an extra $18 a week in their paycheck.
Yeah, actually, that's
Who cares? Nobody cares about that except for, people living it literally homeless.
But also,
in poverty
$18
levels.
a week is not going to help anybody.
Actually, it was, I believe, the Tax Policy Center that estimated that the middle 20% of taxpayers will see an average tax cut of $930. That is about $18 a week.
But the person
That's the middle 20%.
yeah, but
That's
like
not
the way
the
that
poorest 20%.
yeah, and like the way this person on Twitter, I don't even know who the person was. Like he was some type of hawk, like some some Trump hawk, and they're like what single parent couldn't use an extra $18 a week? I'm like, a single parent ain't gonna notice $18 a week.
It's not enough
Right?
that you notice it.
Like a normal person, like someone my age, and I'm a millennial, I'm only in my 30s. Like someone my age isn't really gonna even notice an extra $18 a week in their paycheck because guess what? It's going towards bills.
Right?
Yeah. I won't be as far behind, but I won't be ahead.
Oh, it's like, oh yay, my paycheck is going up $18. It's still not covering anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that a fair number of people that they work pretty shitty jobs, and occasionally they get that $1 an hour raise, and they're like, oh, great, now I'm slightly less impoverished, and that's $1 an hour. That's like twice this minimum.
And also that $1 an hour can screw a lot of people over in terms of like what their health insurance can cost.
Right.
So it's like, yay, $1 an hour. You've just made me worse off.
Yep.
They've literally done nothing for the middle class. Now let's talk about one of the other interesting pieces of this. The one of the pieces that was pushed was this idea that using Apple as an example, companies have an amazing amount of money held offshore right now. And the Republicans would like them to bring it back, repatriation, and then use that in our economy. Now, Apple, I think somewhat jokingly last year said, we're near $300 billion offshore. Like, you let us bring it all back and we'll pay $100 billion in dividends. We'll literally dump $100 billion right into people's hands if you just let us bring it back. And of course, that's not happening. But now in this bill, by the time this bill came around, there's about $252 billion that Apple has to bring back to America if they feel like it. So you get this big break on what taxes you pay on repatriation. It drops from 35% down to, I think, 15%. And that's huge for the amount of money we're talking here. And so it looks great, right? And you can look at that and all the numbers, and the Republicans are pushing that'll make them bring the money back. But then if you look over kind of to the rest of the bill and you actually read, it's not going to. Nope. Because the way the bill was actually written, there's this other clause that they would have had to also fix to make it worth bringing the money back. And that is this bill, this piece of the bill that's about your patent portfolio and the money you make off of patents. Before this bill, if you had, say, a patent for, I don't know, swiping to the right to unlock your phone, like Apple does, and enforced for many years, the country where that patent is where you can claim those profits earned for any licensing. And then that would be taxed, of course, at the full value if you tried to repatriate it. Well, now they're saying no matter what, if you are a U.S. registered company and you have a patent, we don't care where it is. We're taxing those patents and that licensing at our rate. For everyone who went to Ireland or any of these other countries, that will double and sometimes triple what they're actually having to pay on all of their patent, licensing money they're getting. And so that cancels out the drop from the 35 to the 15, and in fact, actually will cost them slightly more money. And so you're not getting the benefit of repatriation because now they want to leave the money there to cover all the taxes.
I mean, repatriation is kind of a joke anyway. They've done these holidays in the past, and we see what happens every time. They bring back a little bit of the money and then hold out in the future for a bigger cut. And then,
but this bill explicitly incentivizes companies to take money out of America
Yes,
and take
and
jobs
actually-
out of America.
Yeah, and in fact,
But they were selling it to us with this idea that all these big companies would bring these hundreds of billions
Of course they're
back.
going to sell it. They're going to
And
say whatever
it's
they
not
want to
doing
sell
that
it.
at all. In fact, it's doing the exact opposite.
Also, remember that a third of the U.S. securities are held by people overseas. So, any tax benefit here, a sizable chunk of that is going to people that aren't Americans anyway.
Well, also everyone needs to remember that today I heard a lot of the Republicans talking about how the stock market, is doing so well, and that's really good for us. But the one thing that, you, as in everyone listening, most of you listening, don't make anything off of that. You don't have stocks, you don't have major investments, you're not playing with dividends or options or futures or anything.
And if you do, you're not making enough to care.
But
you aren't a big
less
enough
than
player to be catching.
15% of the United States of America's population have anything, any money, even a penny in the stock market. So when they talk about that as the thing that is, just showing how powerful this is and how good it is for everybody, of that 15%, 90% of it is in the top 10% of earners in the country, which means, again, all of that rallying and all this great stuff in the stock market affects the 1%ers and doesn't affect you. So don't listen to this whole, the stock market's doing so good, that's great for everybody. No, it's barely great for half of the people who have money in.
Also,
Yes.
the stock market's not the economy.
Also, okay, think of it this way. Say that you make, we'll just do some nice round numbers here, $100,000 a year. And you can afford to have $100,000 in the stock market, and you're getting a 10% return on that each year. So you're making like 10 grand a year. That's 10% of what your income is. So, that if the stock market's doing well, that's a nice padding to your income. Now you look at that guy that, he's making maybe $5 million a year, but he's got $50 million in the stock market. The rate at which his wealth is growing is so much outpacing what you're getting, even though you're both involved in the stock market, that you are actually falling behind relative to that person.
Or
That's
what
why
Whole Foods
the gap
does.
is growing.
Yes.
But also what Whole Foods does, if you work X amount of service hours, they give you stock options. Oh, and they also they tax it. They put it in your paycheck as an income that the moment they give it to you. So whatever the stock option is valued at, when they give you the 5 shares, because you're not getting hundreds. That
also, you work at Whole Foods, so it's not like you can really afford to vest those options anyway.
Well, it's not like no one's going to sit down and teach you what the hell vesting even means.
Right.
They're just going to give you 5 shares. They're going to value at over $1,000, and it looks like you just got $1,000 extra of income that they taxed you full at. But then if you try to cash out because you think you're in a bind and you need that, and you think you have an extra $1,000 somehow, oh wait, no, it's actually nothing. It's worth nothing.
Yeah. So none of those stock market numbers help
The other thing that's
the
been
normal person out there. And if you are just the normal old person out there and want to get involved, I would say hop on Reddit and go to my favorite investing subreddit, /r/ Wall Street bets.
But the
That
other
is
thing
the
that's been like
best.
really like
Yes.
that I can't like not focus on is like when they've been trying to sell this tax scam and like as this like this jobs, it's gonna be great for jobs, jobs, like it's gonna like they're gonna the whole trickle down. They think that like if all these companies that have been they're making record breaking profits that somehow are automatically magically going to give you more wages. Not a single journalist, and I can't even really use that word journalist now for TV like news anchors, not a single one pushed back of like, okay, well, if you want to raise wages, why don't we raise the federal minimum wage? Why are we waiting for like employers to magically somehow take these new tax cuts and put it in your pocket?
Well,
You can raise the federal minimum wage, and that will increase millions of wages on the spot.
Yes.
Well, they also asked a bunch of CEOs if they would actually be raising wages or hiring more people, and they all said, no, this tax bill does not do that.
Now,
No, because they're never going to unless it's mandated.
well, we saw, several things in the news over the last day or so now. Several companies talking about raising wages or, giving all their employees like $1,000 or shit like that. And and like they've been trying to play this up like, see, the tax cuts are working already. And then you actually do some math and you find out that it's a joke.
Oh, yeah. Like, well, they've been using Wells Fargo as, like,
Yeah,
their main example.
right.
Oh, wait. Wells Fargo stole millions of identities.
Yeah, no, like you're right. But never mind all of the wrongdoing, all of the massive and extensive systematic wrongdoing by Wells Fargo for a second.
And they fired a whole bunch of employees after they got caught, and they still haven't paid a single cent back to the identities they stole.
Of course. But putting aside for a moment just their outright wrongdoing, which there is no shortage of that we could talk about, an internal report from Goldman Sachs was leaked that said that 8 of America's largest banks will receive $15.3 billion in benefits from this bill in 2018. Now, of that $15.3 billion, Wells Fargo stands to save $3.7 billion just next year alone. Wells Fargo recently announced an increase in their corporate minimum wage to $15 an hour. That's an increase of about $1.50 an hour. And it's expected to cost them about $80 million.
So they make like over $3 billion.
50 times as much.
Yeah. So
Their benefit is 50 times what this big $15 minimum wage thing is going to cost them.
Yeah.
The idea that and then I think that they're the only one we've even heard of where it was even an actual increase in wages. The rest of them was like $1,000 bonus.
Yeah, I forget who the company was that said $1,000 bonus, but it's like
there were a couple of Comcast did.
Yeah,
and
but
I think
like
AT&T.
let's look at how many bonuses they're like of people they're getting. I can guarantee you it's not the hundreds of thousands that are like working on like the lines.
Well, I mean, okay, even if it is, Comcast has like 120,000 employees. They give every employee $1,000, one-time thing, just for the hell of it, whatever. It costs them $120 million. Like, you think they aren't going to be making $1 billion a year off of this tax cut?
I know, it's like they already got an extra $2 billion. Like, yeah, it's pennies.
Yeah,
but it's
nothing.
But the fact that like not a single like and then of course like you had all like the Sunday shows that where all the Republicans and have a revolving door that they can just go on and talk about, say all the lies they want, and then not a single like rarely was there a Democrat like brought on to counteract like their lies. Not a single like news anchor was like, hey, what about the federal minimum wage? It's like, yeah, Wells Fargo is going to raise $1.50. That's great. But guess what? People in like Alabama aren't getting that $1.50. They're not making they're still getting federal minimum wages, which is what, $7.25?
Yep. Good times. So this bill, it's not going to get signed until after New Year's. So there's still like a few days, like over a week for. I mean, a meteor to hit the Earth, an asteroid to.
Oh, and Alabama got their vote ripped from them because they had Luther Strange cast their vote. They didn't vote for Luther Strange.
Indeed.
In fact, they not only did he lose, the guy that beat him lost.
Yeah. So Luther Strange got to vote for half of Alabama for this tax bill that they didn't elect a senator to do, and the guy that they did elect is being stone cold, stonewalled by McConnell because McConnell's a fucking idiot and an evil turtle that needs to be put on his back.
Well, I mean, this tax bill had a popularity of like 30%.
On a good day.
Let's be realistic here. It's not like it was, at this point, it's not even just Alabama. It's no one wanted this piece of shit.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Except for, again, the 1%ers and the giant corporations.
And the 51 senators that voted for it.
Yes.
Well, they're donors specifically.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter
Oh,
if they
no,
wanted
they
to go.
specifically said-
They're gonna make out just fine too.
Yeah.
I forget who it was that said that, my donors said,
Collins, right?
No, not Collins.
It wasn't Collins.
It was Lindsey Graham said as much.
Yeah.
And I think Orrin Hatch did.
Yeah, there's someone that specifically said, like, my donors said either, pass this bill or don't call us ever again.
I think that was Graham. I think that was Lindsey
It
Graham.
might have been Graham, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. It was one of them, though.
So this passes both of them, and now he gets to sign it, and we all believe he's signing it right after New Year's. So welcome to the wonderful new world of the Trump tax plan, where the rich get richer and the poor lose billions and billions and billions.
If you didn't want that health insurance, you're not going to be able to afford.
Or anything. Did you want to?
Yes, also anything
Did you want to
else.
afford anything? Because you're not going to soon enough.
So I would like to move on to something happier than that, but
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
looking
what
down
should-
at our notes.
Which
I'd like to
direction-
as well,
yeah,
but
which
I'm not
direction
sure
do you
what
wanna
I'm
go
talking
in?
about.
Should we go into
And,
nuclear war? Sometimes that's a little happier.
mean, the fourth North Korean military personnel ran across the border and defected to South Korea, and this time he didn't get shot.
You know, it's what's even shocking about what you just said. I haven't even seen a headline about that in my.
I was listening to the BBC. So,
Oh, okay, that's why you listen to real news.
Yeah. BBC World Service.
Yeah, so that hasn't even made it across the pond yet.
And probably never will.
No, or if it does, it's going to be on the bottom of the page.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone lined up to pat good old Trump on the back, to say it nicely. Bunch of sycophants.
Yeah, that was, man, even the news was like, there was someone was like, man, I feel like I need a shower after watching that. And then someone, the newscast, like that was the guest. And then the newscaster was like, or maybe a cigarette. Like that's how bad this was.
Yeah, that was on MSNBC. They said that after watching this.
Oh yeah, and then someone asked one of the was it CNBC or MSNBC? One of the news anchors, the woman, she asked Paul Ryan if he lived in a fantasy world. When it was like trying to gloat about this, and she's like, "Do you live in a fantasy world? Because this bill is fucked up."
Yeah, so that was horrible to watch. But how about the UN? How are things going over at the UN?
Oh, great. They're going fucking wonderfully.
Well, they're a united front essentially.
So
Against America.
Now.
So
I
there
should
was a vote.
specify.
There was a vote. It came out 128-9 with 35 abstentions and 21 absences. So 128 people voted against, 9 voted. And what this was them voting on whether they would. How do you put this? Whether
It was technically it was a resolution expressing the sentiment that they strongly supported the longtime international consensus that the status of Jerusalem can only be settled as an agreed final issue in a peace deal.
correct, which is of course right.
Yes.
But America, of course, has decided that Jerusalem is the capital.
Well, not America.
And by America, I mean current powers.
I think you
and
mean
by that, I mean their
America.
donors.
Yeah, I think you
There
mean
was an
Sheldon Adelson.
There was an
Yeah.
apostrophe in that one.
Yeah.
So
And a
the
U.
rich people
Yes.
currently in control have decided to call Jerusalem the capital. Now, Nikki Haley made veiled threats to everyone
Well,
in
that was
the UN,
that was because
telling them to vote with the U.S. on this one. And still, 128 people voted against the U.S. on this one, including our longtime allies like the UK, France, Germany, Japan.
Yeah, and I mean the reason that Nikki Haley felt that she needed to threaten them was because a almost identical resolution was brought before the UN Security Council just a few days ago, and the U.S. was the only no vote And therefore, the only reason it didn't pass is the fact that as one of the permanent members of the UN Security Council, the U.S. has a veto. So
Yep.
the U.S. just outright vetoed it there after everyone else voted in favor of it. And now, so they brought it to the general vote at the UN, and 128 countries voted against the U.S. after the U.S. ambassador to the UN threatened them all for doing so.
And the threat was really fun. It was that we as the U.S. are the single largest contributor. And, quote, let's see, they were being asked, quote, asked to pay for the privilege of being disrespected. So Nikki Haley says that, you know, we basically as the U.S. are paying all the bills there and they're disrespecting us.
By not agreeing with what we want.
And then she says, quote, we have an obligation to demand more for our investment. And if our investment fails, we have an obligation to spend our investment in more productive ways.
I feel like she's trying her hardest to be like Ivanka. Like she's like trying to like muster like she's like, what would Ivanka do? Like how can I be a Trump? And it just comes across like really flat. Like I'm not threatened by Nikki Haley.
No.
And like I think a lot of people went into the bathroom after she spoke and like was like laughing like what the
I don't
Yeah.
think they bothered going to the bathroom for that.
yeah,
No.
like well I mean I think some
I
of
would
them
just laugh in front of her.
yeah, and
I
then
mean,
they like,
there's
started
nothing
talking in
scary
their
about her.
language and they're like she's never understand.
I mean, there was probably a lot of laughter that, you know, was audible.
yeah.
I mean, it's in fact, Canada was originally going to vote alongside the U.S. for this. They decided to abstain because they didn't want to look like a U.S. puppet.
why would they want to vote alongside Canada?
Or
I mean,
vote-
not
they-
the United States.
I mean, I don't know what their actual reasoning for that was, but I saw a report to this effect earlier. They had been going to vote in agreement with the U.S. on this bill or this resolution until Nikki Haley started threatening the UN, and they were like, well, fuck that.
So the countries that voted with the U.S., Israel, of course,
Right.
Guatemala, makes a lot of sense. We do a lot of work there. Honduras, I don't necessarily understand that one.
No,
but
that
sure.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because we're funding
we supported the coup that
yeah.
took over
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah,
and we're
that's
still
right.
funding them now.
Togo, I mean, obviously the Marshall Islands make complete sense.
Well, yeah, and Togo is very anti-gay.
The Micronesia, Nauru, Palau.
Those are the places I have to Google now.
Yes.
Those are almost all island nations.
Yeah, little island nations.
Oh, so why do
There's the two.
So why are they voting for it?
A lot of them are very reliant on the U.S.
Yeah, they
Oh.
need us to survive.
Yeah, these are mostly ones that
On
are
that
in the
fa-
Pacific.
They're puppets.
Well,
Yeah.
no, they're probably dying from climate change, and they're not allowed to say it because there's probably some law
Well,
saying they can't say climate change.
Some of Micronesia is, but I think Palau is one of the ones that's at risk, and Nauru is. But no, a lot of them, it's just that they are so dependent on the U.S. economy and like delivery of goods because the U.S. is the big player there. And without that, they are just another small, impoverished island.
It's gonna get swallowed up by the sea rising.
Well, that's happening
So-
either way.
So Nikki Haley threatens the UN. They still vote pretty much completely against her.
Yeah, because
Obviously,
it's
they're
like
scared
try
of
us,
her.
bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she actually lost us at least one vote. Well, not us, but
Yeah. Lost Trump at least one vote. So there we go. That's the UN. So now,
Now we look like a fucking. The whole America looks like the worst, like stupidest country on the the international stage.
yeah, and simply because they put Trump in power.
Well, we don't know who put Trump in power yet. We're still investigating.
I mean, at a minimum, though, like 61 million Americans voted for that jackass.
Yeah,
It makes us all look bad.
I'm really starting to like. I think I'm a campaign with like on the platform of like let's take away white people's voting rights. Like we need to earn them back.
I mean, there's definitely so there's definitely a lot of white people that have made some very questionable, or maybe not even questionable decisions, just bad ones.
Yeah, like repeatedly bad ones.
Repeatedly and
So-
systematically.
And I really think there needs to be like a litmus test or just a reading test for
I
white
just
people.
Yeah.
don't agree that we should do it based on race. I think literally you
Um,
should walk in and they should
if
give
you've
you an
seen
intelligence
the
test.
vote breakdown, the polling by race,
Yes,
it's
I
white
don't care about
people.
that. I don't
I
care
do
about that at
because
all.
the
What
white
I'm-
people are fucking up.
Yes, but you like to talk shit about white people all the time.
Yeah, because we're
Right.
terrible people.
Yeah, well,
Imperialism, colonialism, it's all awful.
I mean,
It's horrible, but what it shouldn't be based off of race. It should be based off of intelligence. You should have to walk in and answer like 3 relatively tough questions before you get to vote.
I feel like there's a Civil Rights Act movement that's like kind of against you on that one.
There's a few of those against you on the race bait, there too.
No, white
There's
people
definitely at least as much going.
No,
against
white
terrorists.
people.
Nope,
white
same
people.
thing.
White
Same
people
thing.
gave us Trump. White people almost gave us Roy Moore. White people shouldn't vote.
I mean, you say that, but there's like 3 white people in this room, and I'm pretty sure none of them gave us Trump or Roy Moore.
No, but like our people did, and I will.
Those aren't my people. Maybe they're your people. If you want to sign up for that, that is your business.
Look, I'm willing to take, the fall if it helps the greater good.
So that is Nikki Haley and the UN. Now, how about this? Millennials are fucked.
What?
According,
no way.
Wait, didn't we-
according to the Huffington Post, in a wonderful article titled FML, Why Millennials Are Facing the Scariest Financial Future of Any Generation Since the Great Depression. They compiled a fair amount of information on just how fucked millennials in America
They
are.
did it in a fun graphic way.
They
Oh,
did.
it was beautiful
It was
looking.
very nicely done.
Yeah,
Well
I
formatted,
think
nice
we linked it on the
charts.
last episode. We can relink it. I know I sent it to you guys.
So they, so we all went and kind of reviewed the thing, and I got to tell you, man, it is troubling.
Yeah, it's broken down into chapters. The first chapter is talking about how there's so little job security now compared to how it worked in the past.
About 9% of the private sector is unionized.
If you'd like to be a little more depressed with the future for millennials, you can read the rest of this.
But I thought that was the interesting part of it was the
scary.
Or like the biggest eye-opening part was the fact that housing in cities stopped.
Yeah.
They they just stopped developing housing, but like even though they knew that more people were flooding to the cities because like colleges and jobs. And they're like, "Oh, this is going to be great. Let's just stop building housing."
Well, there were all these people that were property owners that didn't want, new buildings coming up and impeding their view or bringing in the wrong sort of people or depressing property values by making housing too accessible to people. Like, they had all sorts of reasons for not wanting to let
They're all evil as fuck.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm not saying any of those reasons are good reasons. I'm saying that the people that already owned property had very strong incentives to make sure that there wasn't enough housing.
It was one of those things where like I don't know, like maybe I just never thought of it that hard, but it was just kind of like, wow, like so cities have been actively working to fuck us too. Like,
yep. I mean, one of the other interesting things was the point that, not only do nowadays we not have the job security, we don't have the unions, we don't have the expectation that you'll, start at your one company and in order to get your pension there, you'll work there for 40 years and make your way up through the ranks and, get promoted. Now the companies hire someone from out of the company most of the time to fill any sort of higher level position. You aren't getting a pension ever. And, you're probably not even actually getting hired by the company. At best, you're getting hired by a contractor for the company. And quite possibly you are yourself a contractor and not really an employee.
Yeah, or you're going through like predatory staffing agencies.
Right. And one of the really interesting points they made was that not only has there been all kinds of changes to the assistance programs that make them harder to get over the last several decades, but so many of them are directly tied to traditional employment that's no longer available to millennials.
Yeah, that's why one of the things I've been like when the gig economy first started out and I started looking more into it and what it actually meant, I was like I've been against it from the start because the gig economy Uber has been very smart in an evil genius way to create this myth of like a new workforce where no, we don't have a new workforce. You're forcing exploitation.
Yeah, they've just offloaded all of the costs onto the workers.
Yeah, and
then
you're saying it's a new workforce. No, it's the same workforce. You just you're making us pay for it all.
Yeah. Now you're just getting people to you're convincing people to pay you for the privilege of working for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's entirely what it is.
Or pay someone for the privilege of working for you.
Yeah, it's a very eye-opening thing because it is. I mean, it is fun and colorful, But man, did a great job of just breaking down like the facts.
Problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just like and like the major like bullet points of what
Millennials are in 300% more per student debt than their parents.
ever, I think, in history.
They are
mean, yeah.
half as likely to own a home than young adults in 1975.
Between 2003 and 2006, millennials would have had to work 4,459 hours at minimum wage to pay for 4 years at a public college. In 1973 to 1976, someone would have had to work 306 hours. That is not even a tenth as many hours.
So that's a 13x increase, 14x
Roughly.
increase. I mean, it's insanity. These numbers,
productivity.
there's just a lot of numbers
there
in
is
this one.
so much in
Yeah,
here.
well,
It'd be very boring to
productivity
start
of-
reading them all
Right,
off, but
yes.
we're not
Yeah,
gonna do
but,
that
like,
to you. But I would
I
say
know-
look at it.
But Elizabeth Warren, she's been saying from the get-go because like if we got paid equivalent to what we are producing today for work for the like workers, right? We would be making $22 an hour because that's how much we are
Yeah.
producing. We
Yeah.
are producing 3 times faster and more than we did in the 70s. The 70s is actually when the financial equality was the smallest, or the inequality was the smallest. I think it was about a 30% gap. Now it's like, I mean, there was something in the Boston Globe recently that the average black person makes like something like $8 a year compared to an average white person. That's how big the inequality is.
Yeah, another one of the interesting things from this was specifically with regards to race. From 2007 to 2010, black families' retirement accounts shrank 35%, while white families saw their accounts grow 9%. And meanwhile, 67% of black families and 71% of Latino families don't have enough savings to cover 3 months of living expenses. And furthermore, every dollar of income earned by a middle-class white family generates $5.19 in new wealth for them, whereas for black families, the equivalent is 69 cents.
So for every dollar they make,
Their wealth increases by about 70 cents.
wow. Yeah. I mean, there is no reason why an adult, someone who is 18 or over, working 40 hours a week at a job, shouldn't be making enough to pay rent.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be making enough to get a house and stop being used for rent.
What I mean, like you should be able to pay rent and still be putting away some savings to put a down payment if
Yeah.
because some people don't ever want to own a home and that's on them. But you should be making enough you can make that decision.
Absolutely. So that article is depressing. I mean, just outright, like it is. Wow, these numbers are bad.
And it should be something that
And-
people should be thinking about going into the 2018 elections.
You go all the way back to the tax bill, you see all the fun stuff getting cut that supports all these people that don't have their own home, that don't have enough money
all
to
the
cover
social
all of this
safety
stuff.
net stuff is what's getting cut.
All the stuff that helps all these millennials that now have no money and no safety net is what's getting cut in this tax plan. So that's wonderful, everyone. I would say the only chance here is
eat the rich.
Vote in the 2018 midterms and change who's in power.
And eat the rich.
Yes.
And what she said.
We could do it in a whole bunch of different ways.
Definitely need to vote these people out. So we're going to move on to another just great one. Keeper security.
These jerk
They make a password manager. Like KeyPass, 1Password, LastPass, they make a password manager.
They're a company.
Yep.
Okay.
And their password manager is bundled in Windows 10 now.
Windows 10 sucks.
And a Google researcher who just is like freaking amazing at this finds another vulnerability. Tavis Ormandy found a bug in the software similar to one that had been identified over a year ago and reported it to Keep Security and didn't disclose the flaw until the company had issued a patch, which was all, keeping in terms of all the rules, although Tavis will expose it without a patch if you wait too long to patch, which we love him for.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's how you force
yeah,
a patch.
Exactly. And Ars Technica covered all of this that happened and wrote about the hole and about how long it was exposed for, and that Tavis had told them and they had patched it.
And Ars Technica is a
Tech site.
It's a tech news site,
Okay.
and it's like just one of the
One of
best
the
out
big
there.
ones.
okay.
Yeah,
I only know of TechCrunch, so
It's
Ars
on-
Technica is better.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay.
It's
Way
better,
better.
but in terms of like reach and popularity, it's like on par with that.
I'm not the tech nerds like you guys. You
Yes.
gotta break
So
down
Ars
the layman's
Technica
term.
writes this article. Dan Gooden is the author, and Keeper is alleging that the story made false and misleading statements about the Keeper software application, suggesting it had a 16-month-old bug that allows sites to steal user passwords. Of course, that's not really what the article said. And so they are now suing Ars Technica and the author
And Gooden, yes.
and trying to, of course, get them in trouble for saying the things that they said that were true and journalistic and newsworthy.
Wait, they're suing the individual journalist?
Yeah.
He is a co-defendant.
Yeah.
That's even more fucked.
Yeah.
That's like a Gawker move.
Yeah.
So they're
this
trying to shut him up.
This isn't really their first time around in this kind of thing space either. Back in 2013, they threatened to sue a security firm, Fox IT, for publicly disclosing a critical vulnerability in their product.
Oh, you mean like doing their job?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
because
exactly.
because the journalist is doing their job correctly and telling the world that you are not doing your job correctly, you're gonna get all butthurt about it?
Pretty much.
Exactly.
So, my recommendation here is, of course, stop using Keeper security software and switch to one of the others.
And support
Switch to KeyPass,
journalistic integrity.
1Password, LastPass. And as always, if you do want to support journalistic integrity, there are a bunch of places to help out. There's the Free Press Foundation and at freedom.press, wonderful website. There is Reporters Without Borders. There are all kinds of places to go support journalism.
Which is like mostly important because like we got all these billionaires like scooping up like the small like the
The Sinclairs,
yeah
Peter
the
Thiel.
the LA Weeklies,
Yep.
Gothamists are getting shut down. Who what is Ars Technica? Who is that a independent? Or are they
I'm
on?
not sure who their owners are.
I don't know who owns them.
I have to check them out now.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of them yet.
Yeah, they've been around for a very long
Yeah,
time.
they're definitely.
Well,
one
I
of
just
the
learned how to
long
use a
time.
computer like last week.
Well, one of the other things I wanted to touch on is I just kind of wanted both of your opinions on this one. I think it's a good thing. It's not in our notes here, so I'm blindsiding them. But a new report came out today by a group called Extremist. And they have done this wonderful report about kids in Netflix-only homes. And the report states that based on industry standards about the amount of TV that children actually watch, and then, of course, the industry standards about how much in commercial time is on televised standard broadcasts, that a child in a Netflix-only home watches 230 hours less commercials every year.
I mean, that seems unambiguously good to me.
But what about like the actual TV time?
They're watching some of the same shows.
But is it the same
Probably the
hours?
same
Yeah,
amount
they're
of
watching.
overall time.
They're talking in the average. The average holds true
so
across
like they're
both.
not watching more television because
They're
No.
watching. Well, I mean, they're
Well,
effectively
They
watching
get more time
television.
to watch actual television instead of commercials because remember, like if you're watching a half-hour show, there's only 22 minutes of actual
Yeah.
content, and then then the rest is filled with commercials. So they're now watching that 22 minutes, then moving on to the next one. Over a few hours in the day, they might get more actual like show time in.
but as long as
over the
it's
same period of the day.
But the amount of time spent seems to be holding true to average, which
Okay.
just lets them calculate that, children in Netflix only and Hulu only, if you've got Hulu Plus, homes are watching 230 hours less of commercial advertising per year.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, commercial advertising is basically brain poison.
Absolutely. It is
Especially 'cause-
absolutely poison.
Especially since it's like only pharmaceutical ads.
Right. So, but now what does this do as more people cut the cable and more people move to these platforms? Are we going to see, I don't know, more product placement? Are we going, what is the loss of those eyeballs in that space going to do to the tactics.
Well-
how are they going to get in front of these kids? Because they want to.
Yeah.
So just to kind of like put pause on the whole advertiser part of it, this is what you also have to think about too in the terms of Netflix and Hulu, right? Because now they're going into production and they're producing shows and they're writing shows. So now there was actually just a writer's strike at the beginning of the year, and they had to renegotiate their packages because there's actually 3 times more writers for shows, and they're held to exclusivity contracts. So if you're writing for a show on Netflix, you can't write for another show when it's on hiatus. And if you're putting everything out at once, you're done within 6 months. And the average TV writer was getting $30,000 a year.
Yep.
They're not making big bucks.
Nope.
Yeah. So you gotta have to think of it too. Like, yeah, sure, less commercials is fantastic, but Netflix has to figure out how to offset that money so they can continue paying their writers and the people that are doing all the hard work.
As someone who worked for writing for a Netflix show, I agree.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, like you have to pay the writers, and unfortunately, advertisements is the easiest and biggest way to get money for media companies, and that's why we have more advertisements today than we did, 10, 15 years ago. But there's got to be a balance.
I think there's going to be some kind of a rebalancing, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you lose 230 hours of children's eyeballs every year with your toy commercials and, all the other stuff.
And what's the dollar amount of that?
Where are they going to put those dollars? What are they going to do with that? And I just think we're going to see so much more product placement that it's disgusting.
Yeah, that seems like a obvious avenue.
As long as it doesn't become like ridiculous, where it's like, let me grab my Pepsi Cola.
I mean,
Right.
it's already kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
We
Well,
will
I do like
see.
it when you see them using Bing on TV for like
Right?
research or
Right.
like a
Or
search.
like
I'm like, no one's doing that.
I just
No.
I love looking to see because one of the easy ones to spot is automobile brands.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you can always tell, like, oh, that was a completely unnecessary shot of the hood ornament. Huh.
I always love
wonder
when
if
they
maybe
show-
they provided cars for this.
I like when they
you-
show the back of the computer, and if you do see a logo, you're like, well, we know that Apple was involved.
Oh, it's better than that, though, because if you're actually on one of those shows, they want most of the cars when a car is doing anything important to be their brand, right?
Yep.
And so they don't just give the cars for the on-air time.
Right.
But I know while I was on the set at House of Cards, a few of the people related to the show were driving around in very nice, high-end sports car Audis for free.
Mm-hmm.
They were only allowed to drive around during, the whole showtime and everything. They didn't take it home with them, but their daily driver during recording, writing, everything else, and all that for a few of the higher ups were all amazing sports cars from the company that wanted them to be writing their cars into the show.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
I don't know that I'm really against that either. That's, get a little of yours while you're doing your work. I mean, we're kind of for the worker, but as long as they don't go overboard
yeah,
with
as long
it.
as it doesn't go into like La La Land and it's not becoming like, I mean,
Why is the president's limo an Audi now?
yeah.
That's not right.
Or like, why is there only one like clothing like designer like that you're seeing over and over again that's showing their brand label? Like, obviously,
Why is
Wrangler
this
doesn't make suits. What's going on?
Why is this movie contain 15 minutes of shots of the car of the badging on cars?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, why is there a weird like mini like movie of like Olaf the Snowman? Like, get out
Right.
of here.
So I don't know. I just thought that one was interesting, seeing that much commercial time taken away from children, which I think is great.
Well, not necessarily children, adults too. Like, if you watch like if you watch 24-hour news shows, or like the news stations, and you
You know more about all the medications in use in this country than the doctors
I
prescribing
don't even
them.
know what mesothelioma is, but I want the brochure because it's a commercial every.
Mesothelioma is a keyword in Google that will cost you $50,000 to be on the front page.
All I know is they're offering
That's
a
what
free
it is.
brochure, or if I want to learn more about my new Stairmaster like chair, I can do that, or I could sell my cash for gold.
Look, I hear you
Have
can
you
get a
fallen
rascal
yet?
scooter too.
And did you get up?
Oh, my lifeline. Yeah, and it's like the same commercial. Sometimes, especially for the pharmaceutical commercials, like you'll see the same pill commercial 3 times in a row.
They don't
right?
allow those in other countries. We're
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
the only countries in the world that
Us
allows
and New Zealand,
those.
right?
Yeah.
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 The idea of
Us in New Zealand.
advertising prescription drugs to consumers in most countries, everyone would be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Like we have doctors.
Well, they wouldn't just be like that. They literally are. They
I mean,
put it
also
into
it would
law.
be criminal, but
Yeah.
Like they
just
made it
if you
law.
mentioned it to people, they'd be like,
You don't
"Why-
allow that. You're
why
joking
would
with me."
you- Why would you even?
Yeah, no, and it's sad that like advertisement is the way that like you make money, and if you lose advertisers, you lose business. But I mean, the game's not going to change. But we do knowing how many people I know personally who got affected by the writer strike, and and they are getting screwed.
They are.
And when I saw that the average writer for TV writer was making $30,000, that's some people. If you're working full time at a McDonald's, you're making more than that sometimes because you get overtime.
Right.
You don't necessarily get overtime if you're in a writer's room.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We'll see how that pans out. But Christmas, what are you doing for Christmas, Kayla? Big family event?
I do actually. We do get drunk. That's like kind of the first goal.
That's all I really know about you. You know that, right?
Well, my family loves alcohol, and alcohol loves us. Well, I mean, it doesn't really
Doesn't
love us.
really love all of you,
But
does it?
No, it says it. It tells us where
okay.
it loves us. I dressed my dog up in a Santa.
That's like every day, though.
No, but I have a Santa outfit for him.
Okay.
And this year I also have an elf outfit, so he might wear both.
I am eternally, personally sorry for your dog.
If dogs weren't meant to wear clothes, they wouldn't look so adorable in them.
How about you? What are you doing? Good old
I
Mac.
don't really have any plans.
Do you dress
plans.
up the pole and dance around it?
No.
You don't? No. I feel like you
No.
would be a Festivus guy.
You and your wife just
No.
gonna stay home? Gonna
No, we'll probably go
go eat Chinese
Yeah,
food?
we'll probably go get some Chinese food. Maybe go for a hike or something.
Nice.
God, be healthy. Ugh.
Our kids are going out of town with the rest of the family, so
Yeah,
we're
but you're an
gonna
atheist, so don't you
gonna hang out.
do you cast spells or something like that?
No, that's
No,
Wiccans.
I
he
just-
murders babies.
Yeah, I just sit there really wishing this wasn't a holiday so I could get back to work. And why is all this non-productive stuff happening? And what the
You
hell?
know you're allowed to relax once in a while.
That's how I relax.
By wanting to work?
No, by working. I enjoy what I do.
Oh my God, you need a dog. You need a dog, and you need to be
I
able.
want a dog.
You
I
want
should
You
get
need a
dog.
small enough dog to dress up, and once you dress up a dog once, you're never gonna want to go back to work because you're just always gonna want to dress up your dog.
Our engineer is currently making some wonderful hand gestures at
Our
Kayla.
engineer is a fucking Canadian, and you guys have Boxing Day. What the fuck is that? He can't talk, which is the best way to have a Canadian. Silence.
Wow. All right. Well, that's a great note to go out on. Merry Christmas, everyone, including the Canadians.
To Justin Trudeau, maybe.
Happy holidays.
No, we
to
say Merry
the
Christmas, you
Canadians.
monster.
I was wondering why you weren't, joining me on that one. I thought you were a patriot.
I'm a Christmas patriot.
She does not love America.
It's all right.
Oh boy,
It
there
was-
you go. Close enough. I'm
all
going to
right.
give you that one.
It's all right.
She's tired. Give
It's all right.
her that one. It's a pass. Next week she'll be more energetic.
I know. I'll do tons of cocaine. It'll be great.
Wow. Well, not on my desk. Thank you.
I take that as a challenge.
All right, everyone. Good night, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush, executive produced by co-host Eric Gowrays, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Jeffrey, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie LoCicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.